In this video, I'm going to be showing you guys how you can edit 3D viral Houston Kold style Instagram reels. And specifically, I'm going to be showing you guys and walking you guys through how I created this reel intro in Adobe After Effects.
These are the three most important things when it comes to running a business. Number 1. Consistency.
Also, just a quick mention, if you are a beginner or intermediate video editor looking to level up and edit like a professional as soon as possible, then I would highly recommend that you check out my video editing product skill cut through the top link in the description below. I'm going to start off by creating a new composition. I'm going to name this one 3D Reels Tutorial 2, and I'm also going to make the resolution 1080 by 1920 pixels. Then I'm going to import the assets which I'm going to be using today. You can find a link to them in the description below. Then I'm going to import this spotlight overlay background thing, and I'm going to make it fit the composition by scaling it down. And I'm going to trim it so then the spotlight part comes in right at the start. But the thing is that the background is only a couple seconds long and we need it to be longer than that. So to make it longer, we could just slow it down, but then it will be a bit too low. The frame rate will be a bit too low. So what we'll do is we will duplicate it. And then to make it so then there isn't an obvious cut between the end and of the first one and the start of the second one, we're just going to right click, go to time and time reverse layer on the second one. So then it will basically just go back and you shouldn't really see this difference as well. And I'm going to keep doing this again and again until the end. So I'm going to do this twice more, I think. This is the voiceover if you want to hear it.
These are the three most important things when it comes to running a business. Number 1. Consistency.
You can choose to use this voiceover or you can choose to, I don't know, use your own. But if you want to follow along with this one, you can import this one as well and edit along with this one like I am. And I just used an AI voice to create this myself, and you can find a link to this in the assets in the description below. Then I'm going to go to the end of the voiceover and I'm just going to drag this so then it's in line with the end of the voiceover, and then I'm going to right click on the bar and I'm going to press trim comp to work area. Then I'm going to search up tint and I'm going to add this tint effect onto the spotlight, and then I'm going to also going to map black to white and map white to black. So now the lines should be black, and I'm also going to change the opacity of this grid to 12%. Then I'm going to add this blue light leak overlay and I'm going to rotate it and scale up so it fits the rest of the composition. And I'm going to change the mode to hard light. Then I'm going to add this first icon. I found all of these icons on FreePic, so all credit goes to them. You can find a link to this in the description below. Then I'm going to search up in the effects and presets fill, and I'll add this onto the icon. I'll map the color to white, and then I'm going to add the glow effect onto this as well. I'll increase the glow radius and I'll decrease the intensity a bit as well. Then I'm going to create a new camera, and these are the settings that I'm going to be using. Just make sure, the main thing you need to remember is that it should be a 1 node camera, and also make sure that enable depth of field is not checked as well, but also you can copy the rest as well. Then I'm also going to create a new null object and I'll place that below the camera. Then I'm going to highlight all of the layers and I'm going to press the 3D cube box here, and this will make all of the layers 3D. Then I'm going to keyframe the position of the camera at the start. Then I'm going to go forward by around a second and I'll add another keyframe. I'll go back to the original one and I'm going to basically move the camera closer to the icon, and I'm going to move it also to the right. And to move it closer, use the third position value. You don't normally see this when the layer is not 3D, but yeah, use the third one and this will move the camera closer or further away from the object. It's not scaling it. A lot of people think it's scaling, but no, it's actually moving the camera closer or further away. And when you move like an icon or like an object which is in shot, and you move the third one, the third position keyframe for that one as well, that will just move it closer and further away from the camera. This doesn't actually like change the scale, but it can make it look like it's changing scale, but it's just moving closer to the camera. Then I'm going to add this motion tile effect onto the rest of the background layers, so the grid and the light leak. And this will essentially just make the background go on for longer. Then I'm going to highlight the 2 keyframes I've made. I'm going to press F9 and I'm going to go into the graph editor to create a steep peak at the start like so. And now as you can see, it zooms out quite smoothly. Then I'm going to just scale up the blue light leak as well because I don't really like how it looks right now. Then with the null, I'm going to go just before the second position keyframe for the camera, and I'm going to add a position keyframe for the null. And I almost forgot, you need to link the camera 1 to the null 1. And this means when we move the null, it will act as a second camera. And this means that we can actually create much smoother like movements as well, and much quicker ones. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to play around with the positioning of the null. So I'm just going to zoom out the perspective, I guess. So then it's further away. And then I'm also going to move the position. So and then it's now to the right side of the icon. Then I'm going to import my second icon. And I'm going to copy the fill and the glow from the first one. I'll paste it onto the second one. Then I'll make it 3D, and then it's moved basically to the original position. And now the camera's on the right, so we're going to move the the icon closer over to the right as well. So then it's in shot. But the movement's looking a bit weird, and this is because the icon's a bit too close to the camera, so I'm going to move it further away. And I'm also then just going to scale it up, so then it's the same size as it was before I moved it away. Then I'm going to highlight these 2 keyframes, I'll press F9, I'll go into the graph editor to create a steep peak to the left side of the middle. And this looks quite smooth, but I will adjust it like so as well. I'm also just going to adjust the position of the icons a bit as well. Then I'm going to create a keyframe on the camera just before the second keyframe for the null, like we did earlier, but this time it's going to be swapped back to the camera. Then we're going to go forward by around a second or so, and then we're going to scale out or move further away and then move to the left. So we're now in front of the original icon, the first one. Then with the graph, I'm going to create a steep peak to the left side of the middle again. I want it to move back a bit more, so I'm going to go to the second keyframe, and I'm just going to move the camera further away as well. So yeah, this was the movement I was looking for. But I'm just also going to adjust the keyframes a bit as well. And actually, I'm going to move all of the keyframes apart from the first one just closer to the start as well. And this will make the whole, the first movement just a bit faster. Then I'm going to import our third and final icon, and I'm going to copy the settings from the original one, and I'll paste it onto this one as well. Then I'm going to make it 3D, and I'll make it closer to the screen as well. And I'll position it in the middle, and I'm just going to scale it down a bit as well. And now it looks like it's coming from behind the camera, which is the look I'm going for. And then just before this last keyframe we made, I'm going to create another one for the null. And then I'm going to go forward by around a second or two. And I'm just going to move the camera so and then it goes above the rest of the icons. Actually, I'll move it a bit further up as well. Then I'm going to go into the graph editor, and with these 2 keyframes, I'm just going to create a steep peak in the middle like so. It looks a bit off, so I'm going to play around with the keyframes a bit. I'm just going to highlight them and I'll just move them a bit closer to each other. And then I'm also actually going to move these 2 closer to the start as well. And yeah, this looks a lot smoother. I'll play around with it a bit as well. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. So this is what we've got now. Now I'm going to try to basically transitioning between this blue background to then having almost a different background. And my idea is creating clouds and then the camera going up past the clouds to reveal the sky. And then the sky I'm going to have the next part with the words business and stuff. So I'm going to import this cloud overlay and I'm going to make it 3D. Then I'm going to position it where I want it to be, which is on the screen when after the camera pans up. And I'll also change the mode to screen so and then you can't see the black background around the cloud. Then I'm just going to scale it up and position it where I want it to be. Problem is that the camera is not really moving far enough up, so I'm just going to move the camera a bit further up. And I'll move the cloud up a bit as well. Then I'm also going to duplicate the clouds a few times just so then we're basically creating a lot of clouds. And actually I'm going to move the camera even further up. But the problem is we've reached the end of the background, the blue one. So to fix that, we're going to change the settings on the grid background. So I'm going to change the motion tile, so and then it's 650 instead of 600. So now the blue background should be fully covering the screen. But to be honest, I'm not fully happy with how the background actually looks, because I've extended the background essentially. What I've done is I've basically just mirrored like it, and it kind of looks a bit off because it looks like it's been duplicated. And I also realized that I don't really need to have it zoomed out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of the spotlight layers at the bottom, and I'm just going to scale them all up so that it's not so obvious that they've been duplicated. And I think it looks fine like this anyway, so we'll keep it like that. I'm also going to move the camera even further up, and we'll move it up a lot more this time. And I'm also just going to extend the motion tile on the grid up to like 800, just so then it fully covers the screen. And I'm also just going to duplicate the clouds a few more times, and I'll position them above like this. Then I'm actually going to create the background like on the other side of the clouds. So I'm going to create a new black solid, and I'm going to position this below the clouds. Then I'm going to make it 3D, and I'm going to position it so and then it's where I want it to be, which is up here, and basically where it was before I turned it to 3D. And now I'm just going to center it like so. And as you can see, on one side there's the original background, and on the other side there's this new one. And now I'm going to add the gradient ramp effect onto this black solid. And I'm going to make the top color this blue color, like light blue, like the sky. And then I'll make the bottom color white. And you can still kind of see the cut between like the old and new background. So I'm going to like just adjust the positioning so you can't really see it. So then it blends in with the rest of the clouds. Now I'm happy with this. I'm going to get the text tool, and I'm going to type up in the Bebes regular font running. I'll make it 3D, and I'm going to add it below the null, and I'll scale it up and position it so then it's in the middle of the new like camera position. And as you can see now, it comes up, it will say running. Then I'm also just going to change the color, so and then it's a like yellow color, and I'll search up in the effects and presets glow, and I'll add that onto the text. I'll increase the radius a bit as well, and I'm going to search up in the effects and presets drop shadow, and I'll add that onto the text as well, so that it now stands out from the background. But I'm actually just going to make it a bit closer to like orange instead of yellow, and I'm just going to adjust the glow threshold from 60 to around 58%. And I'm also just going to change the opacity of the drop shadow to like 30, and I'll make the distance 5 and the softness around 70. And I'm also going to make it start like when I want it to start, which is when the like voiceover actually says the word running. And this means I can then go up to Window and then Animation Composer 3, which is a free extension by Mr. Horse. I'm not sponsored or affiliated with the company. It just makes it very easy to then add like pre-made transitions and effects onto the video. And it means I don't have to animate this myself. You can use the typewriter effect in After Effects to get a similar look to what I'm going to add, but I'm just going to use this. So I'm just going to open it up, go to presets, then transition to text layer, and I'm going to add the fade characters together effect from start onto the text, and I'll make the banner closer to the start as well. And as you can see now, it like transitions in quite nicely. And actually, I'm just going to adjust these last 3 keyframes a bit as well. And yeah, I'm pretty happy with this. So then just before the final keyframe, I'm going to add another keyframe for the camera 1, and I'm going to go forward by around a second or so. And then I'm just going to move the camera closer to the running text by using the third position value. Then I'm going to highlight these 2 keyframes, and I'll make the graph so that there is a steep peak just to the left of the middle. And actually, I'll just adjust these keyframes a bit as well. Then I'm going to find the point where it goes from saying running to saying business. Like it says running a business. So when it says business, I'm going to cut it, and I'm going to change the text so and then it says business instead of running. Then I'm going to scale it down so and then it's smaller and in the middle. But actually I need to do this when the movement's fully like scaled in, so and then it's not too big. So we'll go past that last keyframe, and we'll just make scale it down and position it in the middle again. Then I'm going to create a new adjustment layer, and I'm going to add the vignette effect onto this adjustment layer. This is just a vignette overlay which I'm going to add over the whole video, but I'm just going to adjust the settings a bit. I'll make the amount around 70 and the angle of view around 30. And also I've just noticed that the gap between where it says running a business and then the next bit is a bit too long. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut it so and then it's a bit smaller. That gap becomes smaller, and like the voiceover says it, like the next bit comes in faster. but you may need to adjust this depending on how long you've made things. And I'm also going to do this for the second gap after. Then I'm going to open up Animation Composer 3 again, but this time I'm going to go to Starter Pre-Comps, then Transitions, and I'm going to add the digital glitch transition onto the composition, but I'll add the short one, and I'll add it in like just after the other bit's done, around 4 seconds in. So now there should be a simple glitch transition just after. Then I'm also going to go to the exact cut, and I'm going to literally cut every single layer we've just made apart from the voiceover. And this will basically reset everything. So now we just go back to the original composition. But now I'm going to add the grid back onto it. I'll just rotate it so and then it's upright. And I'll add the spotlight overlay like background thing over it as well. Then I'm going to create a black solid and I'll add this below everything else. And then I'll make sure that they're all cut right when I want the next part to start. Then I'm going to change the spotlight opacity to 25%. Then I'm going to search up in the effects and presets tint, and I'm going to add this tint effect onto the grid. I'll map black to white and map white to black, so then the colors are swapped like they were earlier. And then I'm also going to change the opacity of this to like 13%. Then I'm going to do what I did earlier, so I'm just going to make it so and then the spotlight bit starts like when the actual spotlight comes in, so we'll trim the start of it. And I'm also going to scale up the spotlight a bit as well. I shall change the opacity of the grid to 11% instead of 13. And I'm going to create a new camera. Same settings as before, and we'll add this below the like top adjustment layer. Then we'll also create a null object like we did earlier as well. And we'll add this below the camera. Then we'll make all of the layers which we've just created 3D. And we'll link the camera 2 to the null 2 as well. Then I'm going to get the text tool and I'm going to type up number 1 in the same font, and I'll add this below the null 2, and I'll also scale up this text and position it in the middle. I'll then add the glow effect onto this text. I'll then increase the radius to around 150, and then I'm going to cut all of the layers we've just made so then it starts exactly in line with the cut of the glitch. And actually we'll extend the adjustment layer with the vignette on it, so then it starts like it carries on throughout the whole video. And actually now I think about it, I'm going to cut it again, but this time we're going to change the so because I want the settings for like the rest of the video to stay on, but then I want the vignette to like get more intense, and I want the settings to change for this last bit. So I'm going to make a cut, and on the new layer it's just created after the cut, I'm going to change the settings of the vignette. So then the amount is around 100 and the angle of view is around 35, 36. And now it's a bit more intense. And actually I'm going to move the digital glitch so then it's above all of the other layers as well. Then I'm going to keyframe the camera position and Z rotation at the start. Then I'm going to press U to show the keyframes we've got. And I'm going to then go forward by around a second. And I'll add another 2 keyframes and we'll go back to the original ones and we'll just scale out. So then we'll move the camera further away. And we'll also change the rotation like this. Then for the 4 keyframes, I'll highlight them all. We'll go into the graph editor and we'll just play around with the graph so that there is a steep peak at the start. I shall make it as steep as it can possibly be. And then, as you can see, we've got this. I'll make it the rotation a bit less intense. And now actually I'm going to add the motion tile effect onto all of the background layers. So I'll start off with the spotlight. I'll increase the output width to 500 and the output height to 500, and we'll also click mirror edges. Then we're going to copy this onto all of the other background layers, so then the background like carries on longer. And then we're going to open up Animation Composer 3. We'll go to Starter Presets, and we're going to add the fade characters separately onto the text. Then I'm going to move the banner a bit closer to the start, so then it's a bit faster. And then I'm also just before the end of the second set of like position and rotation keyframes, I'll keyframe the position of the null. Then I'm going to go forward by around a couple seconds, and then I'll just move the camera further away from everything else. Then I'm going to highlight these 2 keyframes I've just made on the null. I'll press F9, I'll go into the graph editor, and I'll create a steep peak to the left of the middle. So as you can see now, it comes in and then comes back out again. I shall move the keyframes a bit closer together, and I'll move them a bit closer to the start as well. Then I'm going to get the text tool again, and this time I'm going to type up consistency. I'll make it 3D, and I'm going to move it below the null, and I'm going to move it a bit closer to the camera, and I'm going to scale it up and position it in the middle, so then it's just in front of the number 1 text as well. And actually I'll make it a lot closer to the start, because the goal is I want it so then the camera will zoom out and then it's like it starts off so you can't see the text, and then it will zoom out, so then the consistency text will come into shot. If you do it right, it should look like that. Then I'm going to make the text start when I want it to start, and actually I'll just scale it down and position it in the middle. And I'm also going to change the fill to white. And I'll search up in the effects and presets glow, and I'll add the glow effect onto this text. I'll increase the radius, and actually we'll keep the intensity the same as well. And as you can see, now we've got this. Now I'll add a transition onto this, so I'll go up to Animation Composer 3, Transitions Text Layer, and I'll find the Scale Characters 1 from start, and I'm going to add this onto the consistency text. I'll move the banner thing closer to the start, and as you can see, we got this. Actually, I'm going to make it quite a bit further from the start because I do want it to take a bit longer. And while I've got Animation Composer 3 open, I'm just going to go to the start, and I'm going to add the starter. I'm going to go into starter pre-comps, and I'm going to add a transition at the start. And the one I'm going to add is Generated Light Leak 1. Then I'm going to trim it, and then it starts at the cut. And I'll make the transition start right at the start of the video. So as you can see, we've now got this transition. And actually, I forgot to add the question mark over the icons. And I forgot to add the blur over the icons as well, to add that element of mystery. And you don't want to be able to see the actual icons and what they mean. So to convey this message, I'm going to add like question marks over each one. So I'm going to type a question mark. I'll add it at the top. I'll make it a 3D layer, and I'm just going to scale it up. And I'll also change the font of this to Montserrat Black. Then I'm also going to change the fill color of this to a like turquoise color, like so. And I'll make it a bit darker as well. Then I'm going to position it in the middle of the icon. I'll add the glow effect onto this question mark, and I'll increase the radius and decrease the intensity a bit as well, to like around 0.7. Then I'm going to add the drop shadow effect onto this question mark. And I'm also going to add the Gaussian blur effect onto the icon which is behind it. I'll increase the amount to around 50. Then I'm also going to add the vignette effect onto this icon as well. I'll change the amount to around 200, and I'll copy these two and I'll paste them onto the rest on the other two icons as well. And I'm also going to increase the softness of the drop shadow on the question mark. And now I'm happy with this. I'm also going to duplicate the question mark, and I'll add this second one in front of the second icon. I'll make it closer to the camera as well, and I'll scale it up and just position it where it needs to be. And we'll do the same thing with the third one as well. But I've just remembered that these need to be below the actual icons. They can't be at the top. So I'm going to move these two question marks down. So then they are now above each of the icons. So the first one's just going to be above the first icon, and the second one's going to be above the second, and the third's going to be above the third. So I'll duplicate it, and then I'm going to move this third one so then it's closer to the camera. And then it's in front of the third icon. And we're going to scale it down a bit, and I'll position it in the middle as well. So now there should be 3 question marks like so. I'll cut the question marks as well, so then they stop when the rest of the layers stop as well. Now I'm going to add a like low frame rate glitchy look that you can sometimes see in like Emangatsi and like Houston and Kold reels and those kind of videos. So I'm going to create a new adjustment layer, and I'll search up in the effects and presets posterized time, and I'll add this posterized time effect onto the adjustment layer. I'll change the frame rate to 14, and now I've done that, this is the finished reel.
These are the 3 most important things when it comes to running a business. Number 1.
Just a reminder about Skillcut. If you are a beginner or intermediate video editor looking to level up and edit like a professional as soon as possible, then I highly recommend that you check out Skillcut through the top link in the description below.